Hi everyone, it's John. It is 4/21/2021. That's April 21st, and I have a book review for you. A couple of years ago on this channel, I reviewed my first ever reading experience by someone whose talent I definitely wanted to share on this channel. Her name is Dawn Powell. She was a slightly better known American novelist in her own time, but that's not saying much since she's not exactly super popular today. But in 2019, I reviewed The Locusts Have No King. If you're interested in that review, I'll leave it down below as a link. But a few days ago, I finished this, The Wicked Pavilion by Dawn Powell. This is another in her relatively long list of New York mid-century novels of manners. I'll describe them in the bottom of the review, but this is a penguin. Not penguin. This is an old vintage paperback that was printed in 1990, but I don't know when this press did this, but I found out a couple of years ago that a press called Steerforth Press which is some tiny press I'd never heard of, decided to republish something like half a dozen of her books, the well-known New York ones, and I just thought that was a really smart move on their part. So you can find them in newer Steerforth editions or 30-year-old editions like the one I have. But let me share my review with you. Like I said, I pointed out that I reviewed The Locusts Have No King in 2019. And I told you about the extent to which anyone at all knows Dawn Powell's name. It's probably almost exclusively due to the fact that Gore Vidal wrote a very, very glowing essay about her in a 1988 essay that he had published in the New York Review of Books. Powell, in her own time, had a pretty good amount of critical recognition. She had praises sung by no less than the likes of Edmund Wilson and Ernest Hemingway, but almost no commercial success. This was largely due to the fact that she ran afoul of too many influential socialites whose idea of revenge was making sure that she never got read and was never reviewed by a broader public. And to that extent, they were kind of successful and remain successful to some extent today. Powell's novels occupy a really unique place in 20th century American letters. They are novels of manners that have the patina of 1940s or 1950s high film noir mixed with the relentlessly biting social criticism of someone like H.L. Mencken. Her casts of characters are always these self-deluded cranks, outcasts, and shysters who nevertheless live their lives thinking that their comeuppance is right around the corner when it never is. This particular novel, The Wicked Pavilion, follows a small group of ingenues and their acolytes who are frequenters of this cafe that is called the Café Julien. There's someone named Rick. He's a young, sort of wet behind the ears military guy, and Eleonora. Rick and Eleonora first meet at the Café Julien. The name The Wicked Pavilion, by the way, comes from an epigram of the novel. It's has nothing to do with the pavilion at all. It's the name that's given to the cafe, like where all of these people just happen to come to gather. And Rick and Eleanor meeting sort of set the scene for the rest of the book. They quickly fall in love, but despite Rick's efforts in tracking her down again, their relationship flails and Rick goes off eventually to fight in World War II. Through Rick and Eleanor, we meet two people named Dalzell Sloan and Ben Forrester, and they are both busy, again, shystering it up, right? It is a Don Powell novel, after all, who try to milk their dead friend, Marius, a fellow artist. They're all three artists, for all he's worth. Don Powell says, "The greatest favor Marius the man ever had done for Marius the artist was to die at exactly the right moment." So Powell takes really unalloyed delight in making fun of artists and art critics and dealers and self-styled aesthetes. She has particular fun with a character by the name of Briggs, who is this sort of hack newspaper reporter who's been given an assignment to cover some of Marius's artwork. And Powell writes, quote, "Briggs had hoped for assignments in the field of sports, but the editor felt that literary training and education were required for that, whereas art was a department where inexperience and ignorance would not be noticed." Then we meet Elsie and Jerry, who never fail to outdo each other in their cattiness to sort of claw their way to the top of New York the New York social ladder. Elsie comes from a family of Boston Brahmins and has a brother named Wharton who is trying to bilk her of her entire inheritance. Despite being a model in a previous life, Jerry is now getting old and wants to get married. She finds a man, lays a suitable trap to lure him in, but only succeeds in having the IRS discover that she's behind in back taxes and is teetering on the edge of financial doom. The characters all find themselves sort of interwoven throughout each other's lives, inside and outside of the Café Julien, inevitably meeting failure, heartbreak, and despondency at the tip of Powell's poison pen. There's a really good video on YouTube where Fran Lebowitz, the famous sort of doyen of New York City, talks about why she chose to include Don Powell in a list of writers that most people might not know of or recognize. And she said that there are conflicting strains in Don Powell's writing. She's deeply tied to America. I mean, she was born and raised in the Midwest. Before coming to New York City, in fact, she wrote a series of novels about living a rather bleak, sad life in, I think it's Ohio. I mean, her parents died, and then I think the people that she was sent to after her parents, they died, and it was just a rather sad, remote childhood. But like I said, she moved to New York City. She began writing novels whose sort of caustic cynicism was just too much, too honest, I would say. Americans never like to be told that their life means little in the grand scheme of things. I'm speaking of, as an American myself, we specialize in exalting ourselves and being the first to prop up our own sense of grandeur. We love redemption. We love Horatio Alger stories. But Powell's work are ensemble send-ups of parvenus, artistes manques, and bland elites that Americans love to emulate. Don Powell's novels are where redemption goes to die a slow and painful death. And that, above anything else, might be the biggest reason behind her perennial lack of popularity. But it's why I love her. So, another New York sort of novel of manners, witty, noirish, really wickedly funny book by Don Powell, The Wicked Pavilion. If you are curious about it or have read it, let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you next week.